Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi there, welcome to our ongoing discussion on drama, play, theatre and all that. In fact, ideally I should have asked you this question in the last class itself. Have you watched any play being performed on stage? Have you done that? You will this is a different experience than of course watching a movie, right? So there are very many well known theatres. For instance, you have Prithvi Theatre, National Performing Arts Theatre in Bombay, you have Minerva Theatre or Star Theatre in Kolkata, you have wonderful stages in Delhi itself. In fact, acting is what you want to learn, or if you want to learn something related to stagecraft and all this, you have National School of Drama in Delhi, and when it comes to Mysore, you have Rangayana and it has different stages there. Kalam in Mandir. So these are the places, right? So in the last class we were discussing drama, how it offers a radically different sensibility to the audience, the sensibility that's quite distinct from the sensibility we get when we read a play, when we read a fiction, a work of fiction, or when we read a poem and all that, because of and we also learned that drama is basically a composite genre of literature, and you make use of very many other elements in order for a dramatic production to happen. We realize that how drama as a distinct genre has to depend upon directors, actors, stage, theatre, various stage props and all of it. That's why we said it's a composite art, and when we say composite art, it offers a collective writing experience, because behind the making of a drama you need many people, and when it comes to reading too, because when you decipher a drama, it's generally in a collectivistic mode, because you don't generally read a play, because a play is meant to be enacted. Therefore, as an audience, imagine 10,000 of you or a couple of thousands of you sitting together and decoding what this theatrical performance is trying to convey. Beautiful experience. In fact, in the best sense of the term, drama is it is a communal experience. Communal, in fact, generally it's acquired a very pejorative meaning in these days, right, especially in the political context, but communal means anything that involves a shared experience. In fact, communication itself has this root meaning. In fact, if you can recall, communication comes from the root word communes, which means to share, and all the words related to that, communal, to share, communication, to share whatever you feel, and communion, when you say communion with God or something like that, it has a shared experience. Therefore, in the best sense of the term, drama is communal, it is communal. Well, not in the negative sense, please recall that. Yeah. So in this class, let's explore some more components of drama. Let's dig a little deeper, right? Okay. Now, here is some interesting, I have compiled some brilliant quotes by well-known playwrights and dramatists and theatre directors, and let's see what they've got to say about play or drama or theatre. The first one is by Oscar Wilde. Again, a very well known playwright. The Importance of Being Earnest, you must have heard of it. I regard the theatre as the greatest of all art forms, the most immediate way in which a human being can share with another the sense of what it means to be a human being. Just now I said, right, drama is a communal experience. Probably this is what Oscar Wilde means when he says it, that you share, and you just don't merely share it and you construct the meaning of what it means to be human. you share the meaning of what it means to be human, and you also construct and redefine and recraft what it means to be human, because the stage provides you that opportunity, the spectacle provides you that opportunity, your fellow audience provide you that kind of an opportunity, a remarkable experience, a delight. And Peter Brook, of course, a renowned director, of course, he is a very remarkable director, who has even directed the Mahabharata and all that, right. Drama is exposure, it is confrontation, it's contradiction, and it leads to analysis, construction, recognition, which later eventually leads to an awakening of an understanding. Now, look at this, because understanding is not an ordinary thing. You and I may keep using it in a very quotidian way, but understanding is a blooming of a new sensibility in us. It's an awakening of a new cognitive potential. Understanding is an extraordinary thing, and understanding is at the core of human evolution, right. It is at the core of evolution, therefore, please do not underestimate the quality of understanding. And then you have Bertolt Brecht, again a thespian in many respects, and a remarkable playwright, Bertolt Brecht, and who redefined the very concept of theatre, who redefined the concept of drama in very many ways. Of course, we are going to devote some more time to discuss Bertolt Brecht's contribution to theatre. Don't expect the theatre to satisfy the habits of its audience, but to change them. Of course, Brecht believed in the transformative abilities of the stage. For him, the stage or theatre was not a place where people come and have fun. Of course, that is there, but it does not end there. In fact, from there, he always used his plays to bring in radical social transformations. Even in his play Galileo, he ridicules the monopolies of religion, and in fact he lampoons the administration, and he makes you realize the plight of one true scientist who is in search of some truth. So, whether it is in the field of science, whether it is in the field of arts, or whatever it is, the plight of an individual when pitted against society, and especially when that individual is right and the society is wrong, but the society thinks it the other way around. Now, what happens it? So, he believed that theatre can bring in this kind of radical transformations in the consciousness, in layers of consciousness that we have, right. So, that is why he says basically it is meant to change us. When we say change, of course, to change for the better. Okay. I have another very interesting quote by Bertolt Brecht. Yeah, now he says it's when somebody asks him what is his dream theatre, what is his concept of dream theatre, he says we need a type of theatre which not only releases the feelings, insights and impulses possible within the particular historical field of human relations, in which of course the action takes, all of them are there. Because when you watch a play, what happens? It releases feelings, insights, impulses, you get to meet all of them. So, that is a given in any play that happens, but along with that, it also employs and encourages those thoughts and feelings which help transform the field itself. Here the field, what is this field? Is he talking of stage? Is he talking of theatre? He is talking of the field of human relationships. He is talking of a field called society, right. So, it not only helps us see these feelings, insights and impulses, but should help us transform the way we equate with society in positive ways, right. You have Arthur Miller, a well known American playwright, Death of a Salesman. It is one of his very well read plays, and also performed several times on several stages. Arthur Miller, in fact, if you have time, please read it. Talks of the perils of modern society using salesman as a protagonist, Arthur Miller. I regard the theatre as a serious business. one that makes, or if it does not make, it should make man, when he says man, a human being, more human, which is to say less alone. Because of course, he explores in his plays, the modern predicament of loneliness, aloofishness, and how society, in its greed to maximize its profits, is pushing human beings, especially human beings, to the brink of despair and all that. So therefore, he says that the theatre should make us a little more human, more, it should make human beings more humane, something like this. These are some extraordinary insights that delineate, the nature and scope, possibilities, and the vision in which the theatre should, move forward, something like this. Yeah, this is very, very important. Ideally we should have discussed it a bit earlier, but nevertheless, of course, we get to see this now. Now, when we say drama, if there are, if there is one picture that comes to our mind, probably these are the two masks. Of course, there are a lot of variations in this masks, but essentially the two masks that that you get to see here. One, obviously you can make out it's a slightly sad face, it's a sad mask, and the other one is a happy mask. Why mask? Why not face? Face, see, the moment you give it a face, it becomes fixed, whereas mask is fluid, right? Because anybody who wears the masks acquire the shape and characteristic trait of the mask. Therefore, masks are more fluid and more dynamic than faces. So these masks stand for or represent the very concept of drama itself, and they have their origins in the ancient Greek drama. In fact, in ancient Greece, we said, right, ancient Greece excelled in the production of dramatic arts. You have the first play being performed, the official records show that maybe as back as 5th century BC, the first play being performed on stage, especially in a very grand way. So imagine before that it must have many things more like that, right? It must have its origins much earlier than that, okay. So these faces stand for comedy and tragedy respectively, and you have two Greek goddesses, muses, that stand for it. One is Thalia, she is the Greek muse of comedy. You have Melpomene, the other is Melpomene, she is the muse, Greek muse for tragedy. So these two goddesses are symbolized through these two masks. That is why the moment you say drama, these two masks come to our mind. These are common thing. They symbolize the two essential facets of drama, comedy and tragedy. Everything that happens is an in-between one. It's like two ends of the spectrum, the rest of the types come somewhere in between, right. So these two masks represent the two ends of the spectrum. Now, having discussed various stage conventions, various types of stages, and of course different types of drama, and all of them. Now, let us see what are the various elements of drama and theatre, by extension various elements of drama and theatre. Please remember, the elements of literature that we have already studied hold good here as well, because drama at the end of the day is a form of literature. Therefore, the various elements, remember we discussed especially during our discussion of fiction, we said characters, plot, story, theme, all of them. So, all of them come here too, maybe with some variations, just some minor variations, and especially our discussion of plot, you remember the Freytag's pyramid structure, well, that is there in the play as well. The plot essentially deals with that, but there are some minor variations, because as I said, drama is a composite art, we have to realize those additions as well. Generally speaking, when we say elements, of course, now depending on which book you read, there are elements range from 4 to 5 elements to 10 to 12 different elements, but these are some common dramatic elements or theatrical elements that you can see. Setting and staging, characters and actors, of course you can see, right, in a fiction or in literature in general, what we call setting, in theatre it becomes staging, because the stage provides a setting, whatever may be the setting, whether it is the rainy season, whether it is summer, whether it is 1980s or whether it is 14th century, everything has to be enacted on the stage, right. The stage has to the stage has to represent all the varieties of setting that are there in fiction or short fiction. So, therefore, in theatre we call it staging. And what we call characters in fiction or in literature, we call also actors perform them, therefore, you can call it characters, actors and roles, right. And then you have plot, the element of plot remains common, and you have dialogue. In fact, how is a story furthered in fiction? Usually you have a character speaking something, between inverted commas. When you read a novel, you see when a character has got to say something, it is put between the inverted commas, right. So, here it is through dialogues, soliloquies, asides and monologues that you mention the talking of the characters, the speech element, the speech is represented using these different techniques. Then you have various tools and props that are essential. Then you have dramatic action, you have audience plays a very, very important role in drama, remember that, and you have a playwright and a dramatist, right. So, a person who writes a play is a playwright, a person who engages in producing it is a dramatist, and generally directors can be dramatists sometimes, right. So, you can also add director if you wish, if you want to give a special status, why not, dramatist, playwright, director and all that. Then you have theme, which is common. When we say theme, it is a vision, we have already discussed it. Let us take a quick look at all of them in a little more detailed manner. First is setting and stage. I have already said this, stage plays a very important role. Therefore, when a play is being designed, when a play is being crafted, you must have an idea. If you are a playwright, you must have an idea what kind of stage it is going to be produced on. Is it going to be on a proscenium, or is it going to be on thrust? Which kind of stage are you talking of? Which kind of stage are you talking of? That becomes very, very important, because when I say props, it requires arranging various sceneries, properties where the action is taking place. Therefore, whether you want a small stage or a big stage, if big, how big, if small, how small, why should it be small? There must be reasons behind all these things. It is not a random choice. So, staging and setting stands for these kind of things. Generally speaking, staging involves a process of selecting, designing, adapting, and we say adapting, modifying the performance, the space that is available for the play to be enacted. These are the various things that are involved in setting and staging. Okay. So, it also has scope for including various stagecraft elements and various structural modifications that you need to make. Say for instance, if you need an elevation, then you need to create it. If you need a rainy season, you have to use certain elements. So, all these things happens in stage and setting. That is the first important element of drama that has to be kept in mind. Okay. Both a director and a playwright must have an acute sense of the stage, an active sense of the theatre, otherwise they may fail to a certain extent, if the choice is not adequate. From stage and setting, let us go to characters and actors. We have already learned this, right. Characters are in literature, and the roles of these characters are being performed by actors on stage in a drama. So, when we say characters and actors, as I said, actors also play a very important role, because they through their acting they direct the shade of the meaning the text may acquire. That is why I said they are collaborators, like directors. Actors collaborate with the playwright in order to produce the meaning. That is why I said writing a play is a collectivistic venture, producing a drama is a collectivistic venture, because here more than one shapes the text. Okay. So, and actors play an important role because the entire meaning rests on the capacity of the actor to bring out through their facial expressions the range of meanings that a playwright has envisioned in creating that particular character, right. So, therefore, how sensible an actor are you? It depends, I mean the meaning depends on how sensible an actor you are, and in order for you to develop a sensible good sensibility, you need to have a wide exposure to reading, different stage crafts and all that. Therefore, a character played by an actor plays a very, very important role here. Now, in fact, it's the actor who provides, who brings the text alive. I said while reading a poem, if it's the voice that that brings alive the frozen text on the pages, here it is the character who through their acting brings out the hidden meanings of the text, therefore they play a very, very important role. So, when we say characters and actors, well, protagonists, antagonists, all the different types of characters we read in fiction, flat character, dynamic character, dull character, bright character, I mean you think of any number of characters, you have equivalent actors here. Okay. That is why characters and actors become a very important and influential component or element of drama. From here, let us go to discuss plot. Of course, we have already identified plot as a sequence of events in the story or in drama, not just a chronological event including the causal factor, why does something happen, or if you do this, this will happen, the cause and the result factor. So, here in plot, as we have already discussed in detail, you have in fact, Aristotle said that Aristotle is one of the biggest names when it comes to understanding drama and theatre. Again, we are going to discuss Aristotle in detail. He says a good piece of drama should have a wonderful beginning, a beautiful middle and a convincing ending, right, beginning, middle and the end. And within these three things you should embed the 5 different components of plot. What is it? You have an exposition, you have the rising action, you have climax, you have the falling action, you have denouement, you have resolution. So, all of them must be wonderfully fit in to this plot, and it should be able to convince the audience, right, because here there is a live reader. Audience is, it's a live reader, a reader in flesh and blood, and you can see what they are doing actually, right. So, therefore, it should be convincing. The next is, I said speech in the novel is represented on the stage using dialogues, monologues, soliloquies and asides, of course through the characters, through the actors. Now, what is a dialogue? Dialogue is basically when 2 or more than 2 individuals interact, like our guys here in the animation are interacting. Do you think it is a heated debate, by the way, or is it one of they are showing their fingers at each other? Look at that. So, when you are showing fingers at each other and speaking, it is generally not a good sign, maybe a heated debate. So, dialogue stands for all these things, So, where there is a verbal exchange of spoken words between 2 or more than 2 characters in a play, it is called a dialogue, and that is very, very important. In fact, it is through dialogue that the story sails across this ocean of the text, So, dialogue becomes important. And then you have monologue. If dialogue is speaking between 2 or more than 2, monologue is generally speaking with oneself or just one person speaking. So, generally what happens, if a character has got to say a lot to the audience or to another character, just it is a one-sided conversation. Dialogue, it is a two-way conversation, monologue is a one-side conversation. Okay. So, it is a long speech given by the actor either to the audience or to another character, it is called a monologue. There is no scope for the other person to respond here. Even if they have to respond, it is only through the facial expressions or some minimal verbal fillers like oh my god, oh it should not have, oh glad, something like that. Except that, nothing else. The other person is doing a serious marathon talking. It is a verbal marathon monologue. Okay. Then you have soliloquy. That is again, it is related to a technique in a play, technique in the drama. Here what happens in the novel, when you are reading fiction, whatever the character thinks, you get to know, because the character says the character was thinking like this, the writer can write it, the character was thinking maybe it is better to go and explore that particular city, I have not been to, something like this. Whereas in a play or in drama, how does the character say? Of course, the character says his or her thoughts aloud. A character speaks their thought aloud. This is what is called soliloquy. It is generally a monologue. See, every soliloquy is a monologue, but not every monologue is a soliloquy. Okay. So, soliloquy involves one person speaking, but just oneself, not even to the other character. Here, what the actor is thinking or what the character is thinking, they speak it out loud so that the audience can know it, better. This is what is called soliloquy. Well, you have some extraordinary soliloquies, immortalized in the plays of Shakespeare. Well, if drama is a universe, well, Shakespeare is the crowning prince of this universe. If drama is a kingdom, well, he is the crowned king, Shakespeare, something like that. So, it is from his remarkable play Hamlet. And did you know, see, Hamlet as a play, it is about 120 or 150 pages, a very small book. But it is said that the critical material available on Hamlet is more than 150,000 pages. A play that has about 150 pages, you have the critical material generated more than 150,000, 150,000 pages. Such a small play, and see, do you think it can embody all that? Of course, a great work of art, it still has a scope. I do not think anybody, even after all these pages are written, anybody has exhausted the meaning of Hamlet. You still can explore fresh meaning. So, this is our Prince Hamlet soliloquizing in the play, to be or not to be, that is the question. Now, these have become immortal lines. In order for you to project your dilemma, your inner dilemma, you do not know, you are unable to decide what to do, what not to do and all that. So, that is when you say to be or not to be, immortal lines that stand for dilemma. For want of time, I will not read it, but an extraordinary soliloquy by Hamlet. So, from there, let us go on to discuss another important theme, another important element, which is called theme. Well, theme is something that runs through all the pages, not in a very visible way, but in an invisible way. In other words, theme can be considered as an invisible thread that connects the characters, the story, the plot line, the setting and everything. Theme is the invisible thread that connects all the components of that work of art. If it is a fiction, it connects all elements of fiction. If it is a drama, it connects all the elements of drama. So, it is a vision that runs across, that runs beneath the layers. In order to understand the theme, you need to read in between the lines, So, and in a play or in a drama, you need to listen to in between the lines, in between the dialogues that the characters say, something like that. So, generally it is, the theme would be something like love, separation, death, betrayal or hope, positivity, all of them, something like that. Okay. It runs across the pages. It's the moral vision or the vision that you get, the precept of life that you get when you have completed reading it or watching the play. From theme, let us go to various tools and props that are used in a play. For instance, in order for it to further the story, actors make use of various tools. Say for instance, the basket that they are holding, the lights are important tools and props, or for instance, there is a staircase there, maybe it is essential for them, or a broomstick or a wiping or a mopper, anything like that. All of them can be important props and sets, including a table that you put, or a computer if you are making use of it. Supposing you want to give how stressed the life of a computer programmer is. So, the table that you make use of, and the dark lights, and the blue glaring screen and huge glasses, well, they are the various props the character needs in order to emit the range of meanings the character embodies in the original play. So, these are various tools, and they are also called tools and props in general. So, so one is of course the physical tools and props. The other thing is even the sound, the voice, tone, music that you make use of, they are also considered various props, in order to bring out the pathos. If the playwright or if the director makes use of soft music, so that is also a prop, a tool. Then you have dramatic action, the driving force or forward motion of drama to create dramatic meaning. What does the character do? What does a character do? What does an actor do in order to further the plot there? Movements, the stage movements that are involved here, their expressions, all of them come under dramatic action. The act that they do in order to present the drama that is given to them, it is called dramatic action. Very, very important, because if you miss a movement, you may miss a meaning, right? Or if you miss a facial expression, you may miss a meaning. So, all that is very important, dramatic action. From dramatic action, let us go to see another one. In fact, we have already said this, the playwright or the dramatist or the director. Usually when you say director, either of a movie or of a a theater, it is symbolized by either a hat or a chair. It somehow comes to stand for the director, okay, a hat or a chair. So, a playwright or the director, they play a very important role, and they are the collaborators. We said this, right? It is a joint venture between the director, the playwright, and the dramatist or the dramatist, right? If they are different, it's a joint venture, it's a collective venture between these two things to produce the play. That is why they are generally called a sutradhara. Director is called a sutradhara. The sutra is the thread. Sutradhara is the one who is holding the thread. So, who is controlling the show? Directors. So, these are the various elements that can be kept in mind while discussing play and drama. And of course, audience. As I said, audience is it's a collective readers. Audience is the readers in flesh and blood and collective readers, and basically this drama is meant to be performed before an audience. Otherwise, see, though audience do not have any direct role to play in many of theaters, of course there are some theaters which actively make use of the audience. They are the lifeblood of any drama, because if there is no audience, for whom do you perform, right? So, therefore, audience is the lifeblood of any theatrical performance, any dramatic production. So, when we say audience, it can be individual or groups of people who experience the range of emotions collectively, they experience it collectively. That is why we say that they are very, very important. Now, imagine I said that there are certain types of theaters, especially the third theater, it is called the third theater. They emphasize, they attribute more role to the audience, generally that is the reason why in such kind of theaters there is no formal gap between the audience and the actors. They make use of such kind of stagecraft where that gap between the audience and the actors is erased, or it is minimum, okay. So, and they involve the audience, they ask a question, they ask they even prepare directly while being within a play, they prepare the audience to act it in a particular way. So, they give more roles for the actors, So, these are various ways through which audience plays an important role in dramatic production, right. Now, these are the various dramatic devices that we have, but probably we can take them in subsequent classes. I said, yeah, very quickly what we can do. Aside is something that we need to know, because soliloquy, we have realized what soliloquy is, monologue and dialogue. Aside is what happens when the character, it is a stage device, basically it is a stage device where the the character or the actor reveals what they are thinking to the audience, whereas the fellow character who is acting along with them, they are not supposed to know that. This is called an interesting aside. Therefore, the actor speaks it aloud, but by stage convention, though there is another actor who is standing next to him or her, they can't hear it, or they are not supposed to hear that. This conversation is only between the audience and the actor. Though there is another actor who is there, they do not hear it, they are absolutely muted, something like that. That is called an interesting aside. Okay. Fine, I guess you enjoyed this introduction to drama, and we discussed very many important things. Now that we know various components, elements, different varieties of stages and theatres, let us go ahead and probably in the next class discuss origin of drama, various theories of drama, maybe if time permits, certain dramatic techniques used there. All right. Okay, until then, take care. We will see you in the next class.